The warning from the stars. The shimmering vastness of space was silent, but humanity was listening. Dr. Elena Marquez, lead astrophysicist aboard the Solis Array, humanity's newest deep space observatory orbiting Jupiter, had spent the last 6 years analyzing faint signals from the cosmos. Her work was monotonous, the kind of job that demanded patience, an iron will, and a deep love for the unknown. But it was this stillness she thrived in, and it was here, amid the static of the universe, that humanity's greatest discovery and greatest threat would emerge. Late one night, as the Solis Array's algorithms sifted through terabytes of cosmic data, Elena noticed an anomaly. A series of pulsating bursts repeated every 47 seconds, a rhythm unlike anything she had ever encountered. Initially, the team dismissed it as background noise, a dying star or the echo of some far-off collision. But something about the pattern felt deliberate to Elena. She couldn't let it go. Her colleagues humored her obsession at first, thinking it was another one of her infamous quirks. She was known for chasing improbable leads. But this time, something was different. The more she analyzed the signal, the clearer its complexity became. Within the pulsations, there was a structure, a pattern too orderly to be natural. She began decoding it, spending sleepless nights running simulations and cross-checking with every known stellar phenomenon. And then, after weeks of relentless work, the message revealed itself. They are coming. Prepare. The room went silent when she presented her findings. Her voice trembled as she explained the message to her team. This isn't some random cosmic event, she said, her eyes darting between the stunned faces of her colleagues. Someone, or something, is out there, and they're warning us. The implications were staggering. For centuries, humanity had dreamed of discovering intelligent life in the cosmos. But in every imagination, from science fiction to scientific theory, the first contact was assumed to be peaceful, or at the very least, neutral. This was neither. It was a warning. And worse, it was too specific to ignore. Elena's discovery sparked a chain reaction that reached Earth within hours. The Solis Array, once a quiet research station, became the epicenter of global attention. Governments scrambled to analyze the data. Private corporations poured resources into decoding it further. The media speculated wildly, from doomsday predictions to hopeful theories about misunderstood intentions, but no one could deny the truth. Humanity was not alone, and the universe was far less welcoming than they had hoped. 3 weeks later, the first confirmation arrived. Just beyond Neptune, the Solis Array detected movement. Massive objects entering the solar system at an incomprehensible speed. They were ships, larger than any human structure, dark and imposing like floating cities of obsidian. Their approach was methodical, deliberate. Humanity had no doubt who they were. The Zycaris, as they later identified themselves, were a species unlike anything humanity had encountered in its imaginings. They communicated with brutal efficiency, broadcasting a universal message that bypassed linguistic barriers. Submit or be erased. Their demands were simple. Surrender Earth's resources, its technology, and its autonomy, and humanity could live as subordinates in the Zycarian Empire. Resistance, they made clear, was futile. They demonstrated their power by obliterating a small asteroid in the Kuiper Belt with a weapon so advanced it defied human understanding. The asteroid, once an object of staggering size, was reduced to dust in a flash of blue light. Panic swept across Earth. Diplomats pleaded for dialogue. Religious leaders called for prayer. Billionaires fled to private bunkers. But the Zycaris were unmoved by human desperation. They viewed humanity as little more than a pest, an infestation on a planet rich with resources they believed to be theirs by right. For a brief moment, it seemed humanity might break under the weight of fear. The Zycaris technology was centuries, perhaps millennia, ahead of Earth's. Their ships were impenetrable, their weapons unstoppable. What chance did humanity, a species barely a century into its spacefaring age, stand against such a force? But humans are nothing if not resilient. Beneath the despair, a spark ignited, a defiance as old as humanity itself. Across the globe, scientists, engineers, and visionaries began to rally. Elena Marquez, now a reluctant public figure, became the face of the resistance. Her discovery had warned them, and now she would help lead the fight. "We've survived everything this universe has thrown at us," she declared during a live broadcast watched by billions. "We've endured ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have wiped us out. We've built cities on ashes and thrived in the face of extinction. And now we'll do it again." Her words struck a chord. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its adaptability, its ingenuity in the face of impossible odds. From the ancient forges of the Iron Age to the boundless reach of the Internet, humans had a unique ability to innovate under pressure. And now, under the shadow of annihilation, they would prove it once more. The resistance took shape quickly. Engineers began retrofitting spacecraft with whatever weapons they could muster. Scientists worked day and night to reverse engineer Zicarian technology, analyzing every fragment of data gleaned from their broadcasts. Hackers infiltrated alien communication networks, seeking weaknesses to exploit. Ordinary citizens contributed in any way they could, from building supplies to spreading morale-boosting propaganda. Elena found herself at the center of it all. She wasn't a soldier, but her knowledge of the Zicarian signals made her invaluable. She worked tirelessly alongside a team of multidisciplinary experts, decoding new transmissions and searching for any hint of vulnerability. It was grueling, thankless work, but she thrived on the urgency of it. As the alien ships drew closer, humanity's preparations reached a fever pitch. The United Nations, once a fractured assembly of bickering nations, became a unified war council. Old rivalries were set aside in the face of extinction. Nations shared technology, resources, and intelligence as they had never done before. The world had never been more united or more desperate. Then, on a cold December morning, the Zicarists sent their final message. Their ships had entered Earth's orbit, blotting out the sun with their vast silhouettes. The ultimatum echoed across every screen, every speaker, every device. "Your time is over. Submit or be erased." Elena stood in the war room of Earth's underground command center, her eyes fixed on the live feed of the alien ships above. Around her, military leaders, scientists, and engineers prepared for what would come next. She felt a strange calm wash over her. They might lose, but they would not go quietly. Humanity's first defiance. The tension in the underground command center was suffocating. Every screen in the room displayed a live feed of the alien armada looming in Earth's orbit. Their ships, black and angular, seemed to defy the laws of physics. They hovered without visible propulsion, their surfaces rippling as though alive. Each ship was the size of a small city, casting shadows over entire regions. Dr. Elena Marquez paced behind the control stations, her mind racing. The weight of humanity's survival bore down on her. Months of preparation had led to this moment, but the odds still seemed insurmountable. The Zicarists were technologically superior in every way. Their weapons could obliterate continents, their shields rendered them invulnerable, and their fleet far outnumbered Earth's makeshift armada. Elena's thoughts were interrupted by the booming voice of General Ahmed, the leader of Earth's newly unified defense force. "Dr. Marquez," he called, his tone stern but not unkind. "What's the status of our communication intercepts? Do we know their next move?" Elena shook her head. "The Zicarists aren't transmitting in the open anymore. They've shifted to a closed-loop system, probably encrypted. We're trying to crack it, but it's like trying to solve a puzzle without the pieces." The general frowned but nodded. "Do what you can. Every second counts." Elena returned to her station, where her team of scientists was frantically analyzing the data. Among them was Dr. Ravi Patel, a brilliant but perpetually disheveled engineer who had become one of Elena's closest allies. "We might have a lead," Ravi said, pushing his glasses up his nose. The Zicarist ships emit a low-frequency hum, barely detectable, but consistent. I think it's part of their energy shielding. Elena's eyes widened. If we can disrupt that frequency, we might create a temporary weakness. Ravi finished. It's a long shot, but it's better than nothing. Elena grabbed a tablet and began running calculations. The idea was risky. Disrupting an alien energy shield with Earth's rudimentary technology was like trying to knock down a skyscraper with a slingshot. But it was a chance, and humanity didn't have the luxury of waiting for a better one. Above Earth, the Zycaris began their descent. Their ships moved in perfect unison, gliding silently through the atmosphere. Panic erupted across the planet. Cities went dark as power grids were shut down to minimize targets. People fled to underground shelters or fortified bunkers, clutching their loved ones and praying for a miracle. The Zycaris lead ship hovered over New York City, its massive shadow swallowing the skyline. From its underside, a glowing sphere descended, pulsating with an eerie blue light. It was a weapon, unmistakably. The countdown to destruction had begun. In the command center, General Ahmed barked orders. All units, prepare for engagement. Focus fire on the lead ship. Do not let that weapon activate. Earth's defense fleet, an eclectic mix of retrofitted spacecraft, experimental fighters, and even modified satellites, launched from bases around the globe. The ships were a testament to human ingenuity, cobbled together in record time from whatever resources were available. They soared into the sky, a ragtag armada bound by a singular purpose: survival. The first shots were fired. Earth's ships unleashed volleys of missiles and plasma beams, streaking toward the Zycaris lead vessel. But the alien ship's shields absorbed the attacks effortlessly, the impacts dissipating like raindrops on glass. The Zycaris responded with brutal precision. Their weapons fired beams of energy that disintegrated entire squadrons in seconds. Earth's fleet was outmatched, but they fought on, refusing to back down. In the chaos, Elena's team worked feverishly to implement Ravi's plan. Using Earth's largest radio telescopes, they began broadcasting a disruptive signal aimed at the Zycaris shield frequency. It was a crude attempt, more hope than certainty, but it was all they had. "Signal is live," Ravi announced, his voice shaking. "Now we wait." At first, nothing happened. The Zycaris ships continued their assault, their shields impervious. But then, a flicker, a faint distortion rippled across the lead ship's surface. Elena's heart leaped. "It's working." Increase the amplitude. The distortion grew. The Zycaris ship wavered, its movements less precise. Earth's pilots, noticing the change, seized the opportunity. They concentrated their fire on the weakened area. And this time, the shield didn't hold. A missile broke through, striking the ship's hull. The explosion was small but significant, a crack in the armor of an invincible foe. Cheers erupted in the command center, but the victory was short-lived. The Zycaris adapted quickly, recalibrating their shields to block the disruptive signal. The lead ship stabilized, and its weapon began to charge again. "We need another plan," General Ahmed growled, slamming his fist on the table. "Now." Elena's mind raced. The Zycaris were too advanced for Earth's conventional weapons. They needed something unpredictable, something the aliens couldn't anticipate. And then, an idea struck her, wild, dangerous, but potentially game-changing. "Ravi," she said, grabbing his arm. "What if we turn their technology against them?" Ravi frowned. "What do you mean?" "Their weapons are energy-based, right? If we can overload their systems, create a feedback loop, it might cause a chain reaction." Ravi's eyes widened. "That could work, but how do we deliver the overload?" Elena hesitated. The only way to get close enough would be a direct collision, a kamikaze mission. It was a death sentence for whoever carried it out. She glanced at General Ahmed, who was already nodding grimly. "I'll authorize the mission," he said, "but we need a volunteer." Before he could finish, a voice crackled over the intercom. "This is Captain Marcus Steele of the ESS Dauntless." "I'll do it." Elena felt a lump rise in her throat. Marcus was a decorated pilot, known for his skill and bravery. He had a family back on Earth, a wife and 2 young daughters. But his voice was steady, unwavering. "Tell me what I need to do." As the battle raged on, the Dauntless broke formation and accelerated toward the Icarus lead ship. On board, Marcus prepared the makeshift overload device, a crude assembly of nuclear reactors and electromagnetic generators. It was barely tested, held together with duct tape and desperation, but it was humanity's best shot. "Captain Steele," Elena said over the comms, her voice trembling. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Marcus replied. "If this works, my girls will have a future. That's all that matters." Tears streamed down Elena's face as she watched the Dauntless approach the alien ship. His Icarus fired at it, but Marcus evaded their attacks with stunning precision. He was a blur of motion, weaving through their defenses like a phantom. When he was close enough, Marcus activated the device. The Dauntless began to glow, its hull crackling with energy. "This is for Earth," Marcus said, his voice firm. "Good luck, everyone." The Dauntless collided with the Icarus ship in a blinding explosion. The overload device unleashed a surge of energy that cascaded through the alien vessel, igniting its systems in a violent chain reaction. The ship disintegrated in a fiery blast, taking a portion of the alien fleet with it. The turning point. The Earth was reeling. The Icarus had taken out half of humanity's defense fleet with ease, and the loss of the Dauntless had struck a deep emotional blow. Yet, for the first time, the Icarus had felt the sting of human resilience. The battle had shifted, even if only slightly. It wasn't enough to declare victory, but it was enough to spark hope in a world on the brink of collapse. In the heart of the command center, Elena sat in front of a massive holographic display. The aftershocks of the battle still rippled through the data streams, and the losses were heavy. Thousands of soldiers, pilots, and civilians had died in a matter of hours. But Marcus Steele's sacrifice had proven that humans had the will to fight back, and the Icarus were beginning to realize that their invulnerability was not absolute. "Status update," General Ahmed ordered, his voice sharp but tempered by the recent victory. Elena straightened, her fingers hovering over the controls. "We've successfully disrupted several of their communication systems. We have a brief window of time before they reestablish full control." She tapped a button, and a live feed of the alien armada appeared. They've been forced to regroup. They're not retreating, but they're retreating in a way. They're testing us. "Testing us," General Ahmed repeated, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "I mean they're looking for weaknesses, human ones," Elena said, her voice low. "They're trying to see how we'll respond to their next move, and we need to be ready to show them that we won't back down." Meanwhile, the Icarus were not as unconcerned as they appeared. Deep within their command vessel, a group of high-ranking Icarian officers, dressed in sleek black armor, were strategizing. Their language, a mix of sharp metallic tones, echoed in the silent war room. The alien commander, a towering figure named Verac, stood at the center, his elongated form imposing even among his elite peers. "We underestimated them," Verac growled, his voice vibrating through the walls. "Their ability to adapt, their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. It's not like anything we've encountered." One of his lieutenants, a cold-eyed creature named Xar, stepped forward. "The humans have no strategic cohesion. They fight without reason, without logic. They rely on unpredictability. We can crush them. We need only deliver the final blow." Verac's eyes narrowed. Their unpredictability is precisely what makes them dangerous. They fight without fear, without hesitation. The first wave of our attack should have crushed their morale, yet they did not break. Instead, they united. "We've miscalculated." Xar scoffed, but Verac raised a hand, signaling for silence. "Their resilience is a strength. It's the one thing they have that we cannot predict. This time, we will hit them where it hurts most. They will never expect it. Back on Earth, Elena was pacing again, this time with a deep sense of urgency. The Zikaris had pulled back, but their next move was inevitable. The next wave would be far more brutal, more calculated. They had lost their first wave, but they wouldn't make the same mistake again. "We need a new strategy," Elena said aloud, as her fingers flew over the console, pulling up schematics of the Zikaris weapon systems and their fleet. "Our missile defenses are too slow. Their ship shields are too strong. But if we could—" She was interrupted by Ravi, who had been standing quietly beside her, his face pale and tense. "Elena, I think I have an idea. It's crazy. It's probably not going to work, but it's the only shot we've got left." Elena turned toward him, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "What is it?" Ravi hesitated, his mind working furiously. What if we hijack one of their ships?" For a moment, Elena thought she hadn't heard him correctly. "What?" "I mean, we reverse engineer one of their ships," Ravi said. "We know they've got their ships connected to a central neural network. We tap into that, control one of their ships remotely, and use it against them. It's insane, but if we can get close enough." Elena stared at him in disbelief, her mind running through the countless obstacles. Hijacking an alien vessel, one that was far more advanced than anything humanity could fathom. But Ravi's desperation mirrored her own. There was no time for hesitation. "We don't have a choice. Start working on it." Elsewhere, in the skies above Earth, the remaining human fleet was regrouping. The survivors of the first wave were bruised and battered, but they were far from defeated. Captain Kara Ellis, one of the few pilots to return from the dauntless mission, looked out over the war-torn skies, her thoughts heavy with the memory of Marcus Steele. "Listen up," she called over the comms to her squadron, her voice steady, but filled with the weight of responsibility. "We're not just here to fight. We're here to survive. We've lost a lot, but we've also gained something. The Zikaris think they have us figured out, but they don't. Not yet. Stay sharp, stay unpredictable." Her words resonated with her squadron, and for the first time in days, the pilots felt something they hadn't in hours: hope. Back in the command center, Elena and her team worked tirelessly. They had less than 12 hours to find a way to exploit the Zikarian neural network and hijack one of their ships. It wasn't just a matter of reversing the technology. They had to find a way to interface with it and bypass the aliens' defenses. Every failure, every glitch in the system, brought them closer to the realization that they were working against the clock. As the hours passed, Elena became increasingly frantic. She watched as Ravi's team pored over schematics, trying to find any anomaly, any pattern in the Zikarian architecture that could give them a foothold. "We're close," Ravi said, his voice a mix of relief and dread. "If we can infiltrate their neural network, we might be able to temporarily control one of their ships. But it's risky. The neural system is heavily guarded. If we fail—" "We won't fail," Elena interrupted, her voice firm. "We can't. This is humanity's last chance." The Zikaris, meanwhile, had finally committed to their next move. Vurak's plan was simple but devastating. He had ordered the targeting of Earth's major population centers, its cities, its capitals, its heartlands. The Zikarian ships began to move into position, their weapons charging, ready to launch a devastating strike. On Earth, as the countdown began, humanity held its breath. Every moment felt like an eternity. In a small, dimly lit room deep in Earth's command center, Elena, Ravi, and the team worked frantically, trying to bring their plan to fruition. The hum of machines, the clicking of keyboards, and the nervous chatter of their colleagues filled the air. Elena stared at the screen in front of her, her fingers moving quickly, navigating the alien network. Her heart was pounding, each second feeling like a lifetime. Then, a soft beep echoed in the room. "I did it," Ravi said quietly, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "We've got access to their ship." Elena looked at him, wide-eyed. "You're sure?" Ravi nodded, his expression tense but determined. "Now, we just need to make it count." With the alien ship now under their control, Earth's fighters were ready to execute their final plan. The countdown to the Zicarian assault was ticking away. The battle was about to escalate beyond anything the Earth had ever known. The final gambit. The battle for Earth had reached a boiling point, and humanity's desperate gamble for survival hung by the thinnest of threads. With the Zicarists preparing for their next devastating strike, Elena's team had succeeded in hacking into one of their ships. Yet, the true challenge was just beginning. To turn the tide of the war using an alien vessel, no matter how powerful it was, would be nothing short of suicidal without precise coordination, luck, and unshakable resolve. Elena stood in front of the holographic display, her eyes fixed on the schematic of the stolen ship. It was a colossal machine, sleek, otherworldly, and far beyond anything Earth's engineers could dream of. The ship's neural network was integrated with a complex web of artificial intelligence that operated every aspect of its functions, from weapons to navigation to defensive systems. With one misstep, they would lose control and unleash the ship's destructive capabilities on Earth itself. "We've got one shot at this," Elena murmured, the weight of her words pressing down on her like a physical force. "If we don't execute perfectly, it's over." Ravi, sitting at a terminal beside her, nodded grimly. "We've been working on this for hours. Every second we spend here is one less we have to stop them. We can't afford to get this wrong." He looked up at Elena, his eyes filled with an intensity that matched hers. "You've seen the damage they've already caused. What do we do when they come for us next?" "We fight," Elena said without hesitation. "We fight until there's nothing left to fight for." Above Earth, the Zicarian fleet had begun to move. In unison, their colossal warships adjusted their positions, their hulls gleaming under the light of the dying sun. Commander Varak stood at the helm of his flagship, watching the progress of the operation with a sense of grim satisfaction. His fleet was ready to unleash annihilation on the world below. "The humans have shown some unexpected resilience," he mused aloud to his lieutenants, his voice cold. "But the time for resistance has passed. They will learn what true power feels like when they face the full might of the Zicarian Empire." A low hum reverberated through the ship, signaling that the Zicarian war machines were locking into firing positions. The weapons arrays were primed, and the first salvo would soon be launched. Earth's fate was hanging by a thread, but the Zicarists had no idea that their most vulnerable point was now under human control. In the command center, Elena's fingers flew over the interface, each touch bringing them closer to commandeering the Zicarian warship. "Almost there," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but she knew the pressure on them was immense. Every second was a second closer to disaster. Ravi, who had been monitoring the ship's energy signatures, suddenly stiffened. "Wait, something's not right. I'm detecting an anomaly in their system. The ship is responding too quickly." "What do you mean?" Elena asked, her voice taut with anxiety. "The neural network. It's adapting faster than I thought it could. It's trying to fight back against our attempts to override it," Ravi explained, his tone growing more strained. "We need to hurry, or we'll lose control." "Just keep pushing," Elena urged, her mind racing. If they failed here, Earth would be defenseless. But she also knew that if they succeeded, they would have the perfect weapon to strike at the heart of the Zicarian Armada. In the midst of the battle preparations, Captain Kara Ellis was leading her squadron of fighter pilots as they performed their final checks. They were to play a crucial role in the coming assault. Once Elena and her team secured the ship, the pilots would be tasked with flying it through the chaos of the battlefield, targeting critical weak points in the Zicarian ships. It was a mission with no guarantee of success, but Kara had never been one to shy away from impossible odds. "We're going in. Stick to your formation," she said, her voice calm despite the turmoil in her mind. "We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for everything we've lost." Her words resonated with the pilots, their resolve hardening. Each of them carried the weight of the war, the loss of friends, family, and comrades, but they also carried something more. The knowledge that this was their last chance to make the Icarus understand the cost of underestimating humanity. Back in the control room, Alina's pulse quickened as the final commands were input. The stolen ship's neural network was beginning to adapt to their presence, its artificial intelligence beginning to anticipate their every move. The system was learning, evolving, and fighting back in real time. "We need to outsmart it," Alina said, her voice tight with tension. "It's adjusting too fast. If we don't accelerate our plan, it's going to lock us out entirely." Ravi's face was pale, beads of sweat trickling down his forehead. "We're pushing it to the brink, but I don't know how much longer we can hold on. If we overload the system with too much data, we might fry the whole ship's core." Alina nodded, her mind calculating the risk. "Do it." Ravi swallowed hard and pressed the command. A stream of data flooded into the ship's neural network, overwhelming its defenses. For a moment, the system went still, and then, "Got it." Ravi breathed in disbelief. "We have full access. It's ours." A collective breath was released in the room, but the victory was short-lived. The Zicarian fleet was almost in firing range. Earth was seconds away from being reduced to ashes, and the stolen ship was their only hope. "Get ready," Alina said, her voice sharp with authority. "We move now." The first volley from the Zicarian fleet hit the atmosphere with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs, the shockwave rippling outward and rattling the very core of Earth's defenses. Cities across the globe shuddered as their buildings crumbled, and the skies filled with the screams of the dying. But humanity's counterattack was already in motion. The hijacked ship, now under full human control, broke through the chaos of the battle, tearing through the sky like a comet. Its weapon systems were a mirror of the Zicarian ships that had devastated Earth only hours before, and it unleashed a barrage of energy beams, each strike tearing apart Zicarian ships with surgical precision. Kara's squadron followed, using the distraction created by the stolen ship to swoop in and engage the weakened alien fleet. "Target the shields," she ordered over the comms. "Hit them where it hurts." As explosions erupted around her, Kara's heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and fear. They had breached the Zicarian defenses, finally, but there was no time to savor the victory. The Zicarians were not going down without a fight. In the command center, Alina watched as the hijacked ship's weapons continued to tear into the Zicarian fleet. It was working. The Zicarian ships, caught off guard by their own stolen technology, were disoriented and struggling to regroup. But she knew that the Zicarians would not stay disoriented for long. "We need to hit them hard. And we need to hit them now," Alina urged. "We're doing it," Ravi replied, his fingers dancing over the controls, executing the precise strikes that would cripple the alien armada. The stolen ship surged forward, a ghost ship of war, as it approached the flagship of Commander Varak himself. Alina watched with grim satisfaction as their weapons locked onto the alien vessel. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of humanity. Above, in the skies where the battle raged, Varak watched with growing horror. The humans had taken his own ship and turned it against him. The tides of war had shifted, and now he understood something his people had never fully grasped. Humanity's tenacity was not to be underestimated. "I have underestimated them," he muttered, his voice a venomous hiss. "But I will not make that mistake again." As the Zicarian flagship fired its final volley, the stolen ship made its move. The last stand. The final battle had begun, and everything that humanity had worked for, sacrificed, and suffered through was leading up to this moment. The once shattered remnants of Earth's defense forces, now rallying behind the stolen Zicarian warship, gathered their strength to strike at the heart of the alien fleet. Above the desolate blue planet, in the vast expanse of space, the fate of the world hung by a thread, with both sides desperate to land the killing blow. The stolen ship had already dealt devastating damage to the Zicarian armée. Its weapons had torn through one of their larger battleships, a thunderous explosion lighting up the heavens like a star being born. Still, the Zicarian fleet wasn't going to give up without a final, catastrophic push. In response, the Zicaris focused their most formidable firepower on the stolen ship and its allies. In the heart of Earth's command center, Alina's team was working in overdrive, pushing the stolen ship systems to their limits. They had taken control, but they knew their advantage was fleeting. The Zicarian warships were fast adapting to their tactics, learning from every strike and counterattack. It was only a matter of time before they figured out a way to neutralize the stolen ship. "We need a plan. We can't just keep attacking blindly," Ravi said, his voice taut with urgency. His fingers hovered over the controls, sweat dripping from his brow. They'd been responding faster than expected. Alina paced back and forth, her mind working through the chaos, analyzing their options. "We need to make a bold move, something they won't anticipate." Ravi's eyes narrowed as he scanned the data. "What if we use their own tactics against them? I mean, really hit them where they're vulnerable?" Alina stopped pacing and turned to face him, her gaze hardening. "Tell me you have a plan." Ravi hesitated only for a moment, then started inputting a series of commands. "The neural network of the ship has been adapting, yes. But what if we overclock it, force it to push itself beyond its limits? We could overload their defense systems, knock them offline long enough for our fighters to finish the job." Alina's eyes gleamed with recognition. "It's risky. If we push it too far, we could lose the ship." "True," Ravi said, looking up at her. "But if we don't take that risk, we'll lose everything." Meanwhile, above Earth, the Zicarian fleet had begun to respond in kind. Varak, the Zicarian commander, stood before a massive viewing screen aboard his flagship, watching as the humans, despite their desperation, showed signs of a fight they had never expected. His earlier arrogance had given way to a reluctant respect for their resilience. However, respect would not be enough to save the human race. The alien fleet fired at the stolen ship, sending a barrage of plasma blasts cascading toward it. The ship's shields flared as they absorbed the incoming strikes, but Alina knew it couldn't last. She could feel the strain on the systems. Every shot was a blow to their chances of survival. "Here goes nothing," she whispered as she activated the overclocking sequence, her hand steady despite the tension building inside her. The stolen ship's engines roared to life, and its weapons systems surged with an intensity that rattled the command center. The neural network, pushed far beyond its intended capabilities, began to whine and groan. But it responded, just in time. As the Zicarian fleet prepared to launch another volley, Alina's team triggered a rapid, overwhelming counterattack. The stolen ship released a volley of hypercharged energy blasts, cutting through the dark expanse of space with pinpoint accuracy. The first shot struck a Zicarian destroyer, obliterating its shields and sending the ship spinning into a fiery demise. A second shot followed, hitting a third ship with such precision that it ruptured the core of the vessel, sending shockwaves through the fleet. "We've got them reeling," Ravi exclaimed. "Keep it up." But as the humans celebrated the unexpected turn of events, the Zicarian fleet quickly regrouped. They had expected a brief setback, but this was different. They had never before encountered an enemy willing to fight so fiercely, to risk everything for a single chance to survive. Varak snarled, his patience wearing thin. "Prepare to launch everything we have. This will end now." Kara Ellis and her squadron of fighter pilots, their faces grim with determination, dove into the chaos of the battle. Their mission was simple: provide cover for the stolen ship while it pressed its advantage. Every pilot knew the stakes. This was a suicide mission. If they didn't take out the remaining Zicarian warships, the stolen ship would be vulnerable to a final strike. And that strike could end the war, and Earth, forever. Kara's voice crackled over the comms. "Stay sharp, people. We're not just here to protect the ship. We're here to win this fight. We fight for everyone who's counting on us." The pilots responded in unison, their voices a chorus of resolve. For Earth, the squadron split into two groups, flanking the stolen ship to draw fire away from its vulnerable systems. As the battle raged on, Kara maneuvered her fighter with precision, her every move calculated to avoid enemy fire while delivering devastating strikes on the Zicarian ships. The Zicarian fleet was massive, but humanity was fighting with everything it had. The sky, no, the entire universe, had become a battlefield of light and sound, the hum of plasma weapons and the shriek of laser fire filling the silence of space. Each passing moment felt like a lifetime. And yet, despite the seemingly insurmountable odds, humanity held its ground. Back on Earth, the ground forces, led by General Voss and his team of soldiers, had also been tasked with their final push. They weren't part of the space battle, but their mission was just as critical. The Zicarian ground forces, though weakened from the initial assault, were still a formidable force. Their mechs and drones had been wreaking havoc on the surface, tearing through cities and military installations alike. But the humans, bolstered by their success in space, were ready to make their stand. "We take this planet back," General Voss said, his voice a rallying cry that echoed through the command bunker. "And we do it for everyone who believed in us. No more running. No more fear. This is it. We take it all." His soldiers cheered, a unified force driven by the determination to reclaim their home. The sound of their boots hitting the ground became a march of defiance. They had fought too long, too hard, to give up now. Back in space, the stolen ship had become the focal point of the battle, drawing more and more fire from the Zicarian fleet. The overclocked systems were beginning to strain under the pressure, but it was working. The alien ships were starting to fall back. Alina watched the battle unfold from the bridge, her fingers crossed as the stolen ship surged forward, its weapons blindingly fast as it tore through enemy lines. But then, a new threat appeared on their radar, a massive Zicarian mothership, far larger and more powerful than anything they had encountered before. The Zicaris had one final weapon left to deploy, a weapon that could wipe out everything they had fought for in a single devastating strike. Virak's voice thundered over the comms. "Prepare to face your annihilation, humans." Alina's eyes widened as she saw the mothership's weapons power up, and a familiar fear gripped her heart. The battle was far from over. "Ravi," she shouted, her voice sharp. "I need a solution, now." He was already inputting commands, his mind working frantically to calculate a response. "We can't take it head-on, not without blowing the stolen ship's core. But, wait, I think I have an idea." "Make it work," Alina said, her voice laced with determination. "We're going to end this,